it's probably just going to roll. All right, we are live. What's up, Donation? It's Michael and Jesse with Plant the Spear. Sorry, guys, I had to go check on something. I got something on the smoker. It is Saturday. I'm still trying to enjoy my Saturday, even though Florida State kind of pooed all over that with another disappointing loss, man, 34-31 at home to Pitt. Man, to me, and I know we're going to get into this, to me, this was the straw. And I said it last week, and I stand on it again this week. I stand on my position. I think the experiment's over. I understand with the buyout, it's probably no change is probably going to come to the end of the season. But, man, it's just this is getting harder and harder to justify. I said before I was going to stop excusing losing. I was going to stop making excuses and justifying the things that we're seeing. And I'm still at that point. And so we'll talk about the game a little bit. We'll talk about some overall thoughts a little bit. But we're going to let some people get in here, get in the chat and all that stuff in the stream. Again, we had to just wait on a couple things to get going before we could get in here. But I appreciate you guys joining us. Again, I know this is not what we want to be sitting here talking about. I know this is just another tough week, Michael. It just seems that these come more often than not. When you're talking about a team that has won, 4 games or whatever, or 5 games in the past 2 years, and 3 of them have been against lower level teams. I mean, it's hard to find positive, right? I mean, I don't think everything today there were some things in this game that were not completely terrible, but I mean, I can't sit here and lie through my teeth and tell you that I'm happy with it, a lot of what I saw. So I'll throw it to you for some initial thoughts, man, and we'll talk about some things.
Yeah, I mean, it was absolutely disappointing to be able to watch the game today and to see just kind of this team come out. They felt, Pitt was able to drive down. I mean, gosh, take half of the first quarter, 8-minute drive, 15 plays, 75 yards. They went for it 3 straight times on 4th down, was able to convert all 3 times. And you just kind of had a feeling, okay, well, looks like the defense still hasn't figured itself out as well. But then the offense, kind of did their thing and went down and scored. And then obviously Pitt scored again. And then Florida State went on a 21-0 run to go into the half, up 21-14. You felt, somewhat decent about where they were at the half. And you thought, okay, if you can come out and score, like we always talk about that middle 8, if you can come out and do something there, then, you could potentially put this game away. I thought the defense kind of stepped up a little bit with the 2 picks against the freshman QB, but he just really settled down. I mean, that kid's got moxie. We talked about this on the preview. Reminded me at least of a lot of Chandler Morris there, just really nifty and can get out of the way and make plays with his leg, but also his arm as well too. And then of course you have to talk about the running back Reed, out the last 2 games. Comes back specifically. They always heal up. It's always a magical healing before Florida State.
And they said he was like puking on the sideline and just playing through it, man.
Exactly. And he just tore up that defense. I mean, there was just no answer for him. Just wide open. I think he only had like 35 yards rushing, but he had over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns and just big explosive plays. And it's disappointing for sure. They're definitely the defense, had some good, a lot of bad. The offense, both same, a lot of good, a lot of bad. Again, we fumble for a 3rd straight week. Running back fumbles the ball. It is disappointing, but as I said, in our post game Miami show, the test is going to be at the end of the season. The evaluation comes at the end of the season. And if at the end of the season, the standard isn't met, then I think that's where, I'll be willing to have the conversation around the future of Mike Norvell. But right now, we're still in the middle of the season. We're 3-3. I think we have, is it Wake next or Virginia Tech? It's Wake. Stanford. Oh, you got to go to Palo Alto at 10:30 ACC after the dark. Should be a winnable game, but,
we'll should Pitt with a freshman quarterback.
Exactly. So we'll see. We'll see where they're at when we get there. Just a disappointing overall afternoon.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I want to touch on a couple things with the game, right? I mean, what's so disappointing is Tommy actually had a pretty good first half, right? And yes, you were undermanned at the receiving core, right? You were decimated by injuries. We talked about that before the show.
Yeah.
I give them the benefit of the doubt on that, but I also, like I told you, man, this is freaking year 6, and you got one receiver that you can trust, and that's Deuce Robinson, and he came from the portal. You got no one else that you feel like you can go to and step up in these situations. To me, that's an indictment on the recruiting that's happened. You talk about the defensive side of the ball. There were a lot of people that are like, well, early on, well, Tony doesn't have his guys and all that stuff. And I'm like, man, okay, well, here's the thing. The secondary looks like an unmitigated disaster. That coach did not get replaced. The linebackers coach, yes, he was recruiting defensive ends at that time, but that's the same defensive coach. Like, they only swapped a couple of coaches on the defensive side of the ball. You can't tell me that this is a talent issue. Again, we talked about this the last 3 weeks where you are lining up 10 yards off these receivers. You are scared to press these receivers that you should have better athletes than. You can't get pressure on the quarterback. And I mean, you get carved up by a freaking freshman quarterback making his first start on the road. He was 10 of 12 for 144 and 2 touchdowns in the first. Oh, no, that's Tommy. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Man, but we talked to, again, the linebackers. Like, Michael, does anybody in the country run like a 5-0-7 defense? Because at this point, I would like to just not have linebackers on the field because they can't.
Yeah.
They can't cover, man. And Jerry Wilson has regressed so badly. It's unbelievable. But one thing I do want to touch on that you talked about with the middle 8. I was looking during this drive or during this game because I was like, man, here's another failed opportunity on middle 8. So far this season versus Power 4 teams, Florida State has had 8 drives in the middle 8 minutes, and we have walked away with 7 points in 8 drives. That is a big part of why you're losing these games, man, is it's opportunities after opportunities that you keep wasting. And, you talked about the fumble too. Not only do you have the fumble, what came right before the fumble? A penalty. It's the same thing week after week. We just keep getting worse. I don't understand it. Like, you have a punt blocked in this game. You struggle to field punts in this game. Again, special teams isn't even like it's a bright spot like you had last year. We have now moved from 3rd and Kelly to 3rd and Fuller to 3rd and White because we can't get off the field on third downs.
Yeah.
You have them at a 3rd and 13. You give up 12.5 yards, and then you can't stop them again. I'm just baffled, right? I mean, I am just baffled. You have now lost 8 ACC games in a row. You're 1-10 in the last ACC, your last 10 ACC games. I mean, when you talk about the Pitt game in itself, right? You saw a couple. I thought Sawchuk ran pretty decent. I think maybe if you have Deuce doesn't go out in this game, maybe that changes the game. Tommy started very well, but the second half was not good.
Well, they didn't call a lot of throws in the second half. It was a lot of runs.
Right. And even then, I sent you this stat before the game where, like, Tommy's 1-6 when he throws for over 240 yards. So, like, man,
he's 245.
I don't 1-7. So, like, I don't understand. That is the wildest stat, that when you basically want to hide your quarterback because the better he throws, the worse your team gets. I'm just at a loss for words, man. I mean, again, you got to bounce. But, like, the thing is, like you said, the season's not over, right? You have to go to Stanford, then you get a bye, then you get Wake. And when you talk about Mike Norvell, we are going to talk about that in just a second. I understand the one side of the buyout, and I also understand that Mike Norvell does not call plays. So it doesn't really make a big difference if you fire him in the middle of the season, because it's not like, look at Arkansas or whatever. Like, you're putting Sam Pittman, you fire him. Now, he didn't call plays either. Is it really going to make a big difference for them now that Bobby Petrino's calling plays? I don't know, right? I don't think it's going to make a huge difference. But like you said, man, at the end of the season, a decision needs to be made, right? And I don't know what the rest of the season is going to bring, but I'm just not confident that it's going to look good enough to save his job. Like, me personally, if I was Elon Musk and I had billions of dollars that I could just give away, I would call Michael Offer right now and be like, dude, I'll pay it if you just move on right now. Because I think the experiment's over, man. Me personally, I do. Because if you're telling me that these teams can't win because of talent, who is the one responsible for stocking this roster with talent, right? And that's not some of the coaches that are on there now. but you also brought in 23 transfers from the portal. You brought in 23 high school recruits, and most of your freshmen look better than your seniors. So that's another kind of an indictment on development. Now, that may not be on this staff either, but like, who is the one that kept Tony Tokars around when you haven't developed a single high school quarterback? Who is the one that kept Alex Atkins around when you haven't developed a single offensive lineman? The running backs just keep fumbling the ball. Like, I like David Johnson, but what are we doing? This is what
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand is, what are we doing? I think at this point, I think this loss was the one that broke the straw that broke the camel's back. This is 2 weeks in a row now. You've seen your fans dump out of the stadium early. I know people can talk about the buyout all they want. It's a lot of money. Maybe the school don't have it. I sure don't have it to give them. But at the end of the day, you have to think about ticket sales. You have to think about, the TV revenue that you're going to lose from being on the freaking CW now. Yeah, I mean, as well as I do, we tried to sell our tickets for this game and they were going for $10. Like,
Yeah.
this feels like last year. Last year against Memphis, I couldn't give away my tickets. And now you're running into the same thing again. The donations are going to dry up. Like, the short-term pain and the long-term game have to be weighed at some point. Sam Pittman, who we just talked about getting fired, they negotiated his buyout down. Mike Norvell already restructured his contract. Maybe that's something you can look at and talk about. There's got to be at least be conversations behind closed doors.
Yeah, I mean his agent is Jimmy Sexton. They ain't negotiating no buyout. Willie Taggart's agent was Jimmy Sexton. They didn't negotiate a buyout. It's gonna be $50 million if we fire him. And let's just be real. Let's say you do pay the $50 million. And really, the best thing about Mike, this is not like Mark Stoops at Kentucky, because they're talking about firing him there. And if they fire him, they have 60 days to pay the full $30 million. Whereas this can be paid out over time. But let's say you do that. Okay. Let's say it's in the same way like they did Taggart. It took 3 or 4 years to pay Taggart off. So let's say you do that with Mike Norvell. Well, now you don't necessarily even have the money to go get a pristine coach. You don't have necessarily the money to go get a pristine staff. So now you're going to have to settle with another G5 level coordinator or a lower coordinator to take over. Gus Malzahn doesn't want to be a head coach anymore. Tony White is clearly not ready to be a head coach right now. So who do you go get? That's what I'm saying. Like, part of this question is, if you make this call now, who do you go hire? Who's out there that's going to say yes to this program right now? You're going to have to settle again for a G5 coach again. So that's one. And then two, I would say, once you make if you pull this trigger now, then your players are all welcome to get into the transfer portal, right? They're going to, if you think they've maybe potentially might have quit already, you fire Mike Norvell and this program's quit, and you're going to see another disastrous season again. Yes, the season is not where we wanted to go, but it's not a disaster yet. Also, you fire Mike Norvell right now, the recruiting class that's actually chalking up to be good. And I know they haven't won yet, so it could fall apart, but it will most definitely fall apart. That class is gone, right? And so now you don't have a high school class coming in. So the next head coach is basically going to have to go out and rely on the transfer portal again. And we're going to have to do the same thing. We're in this perpetual loop and this cycle all over again. And so that's my thing of let's just get to the end of the season. At the end of the season, whatever the record is, that's going to be the report card. And when I was a kid, if I brought home a bunch of D's and F, I knew what was happening. I was going to get my butt whooped. Well, at the end of the season, if Mike Norvell brings home a bunch of D's and F, guess what? We got a clear indication. We can get our coach. We can start anew. It's some of those things still, transporter still will have to play in effect. But if you do this now, I think it'll be the worst decision Michael Alford could make. I think you got to get to the end of the season and see where it's at then.
That's fair, man. I still disagree. I think you could get to the end of the season, but I think you still got to fire him, man. I just don't. You talk about you got to go to the portal with a new coach. Guess what Mike Norvell is going to do? He's going to go to the portal because you're going to lose your entire offensive line. You're probably going to lose your quarterback. You're going to lose a lot of veterans on that defensive side of the ball anyway. And then you talk about the having to go get a G5 coach. Man, I disagree. Right? I don't think
who. Tell me right now who.
That's for Michael Alford to figure out.
No. You are the fan base. Tell you guys want a new coach. Tell me right now who's saying yes to Florida State right now.
I'm pretty sure a lot of coaches would say yes to Florida State.
But are
you
those
got a
coaches
brand new football
elite?
Facility? Is Mike Norvell elite?
No, but I'm just saying, who's better? Who's out there that you're going to replace him with? That's my question. Who is out there
Bill
right
Belichick?
now?
That's
Yeah,
about it.
Bill Belichick is done. Don't go get him.
That's
I'm
about
just
the whole. That's
saying.
about the only worst you can do. Like, I'm
I,
sorry, man. I just can't excuse. I just
no,
can't sit there and say we can't find better than 1-10 in the ACC in the last 10 games. I
I
just don't
agree
see
with
it.
you. I agree with you. I'm just saying, who are you? I'm asking you, who I'm not disagreeing that this has been a travesty, that there's a referendum that is building very, 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 very strongly. I'm just saying, who are you going to get? You fire Mike now. Who are you going to go get? You fire him at the end of the season. Who are you going to go get?
I think
Who?
you make a pass at Lane. I think you could. I know this is going to sound crazy, but guess who's winning like crazy right now? Dan Mullen at UNLV. Florida probably should have held on to him. Um, I think you make a pass at Kurt Signetti. I think you try and see. Indiana's still not a real big time program. Man, I know this is a name that nobody wants to hear, and I understand it, but I would take Jimbo back over Mike Norvell right now because he could at least stack the let me ask you this, right? I know this
Okay.
is a completely hypothetical situation
Okay.
that would never in a million years happen.
Yeah.
If Jimbo said, "Man, I really want to be the head coach at Florida State, and I really did get paid $75 million by Texas A&M," if he offered to pay Mike's buyout, would you make that trade right now?
Would I make that trade right now?
If you were the AD and Fisher said, "I'll pay the buyout, but I am guaranteed the head coach spot at Florida State next season," would you take that deal?
I would have serious discussions about it. Absolutely.
I would be like, "Write the check, buddy. I'll have his office cleaned out by Monday." Because man, and again, I'm saying it like this. I'm not even saying that you should bring back him, right?
Yeah.
I don't believe in going back to your ex-lovers because things didn't work out the first time. But
Yeah.
man, the guy can recruit. And, so many people want to sit there and say, like, well, it's an outdated, archaic offense. Guess what? We got an offensive coordinator whose best offense was in 2010.
And
That's
well,
just as outdated as Jimbo's.
absolutely. But let me also just put a little rank in your thing there is, yes, Jimbo can recruit. Jimbo could recruit in the old system. And when the NIL arrived, Jimbo could recruit with a ton of resources, but he's coming to Florida State. I just read this morning that Florida State's projected NIL budget right now is $18 million. You know what Miami's projected NIL budget is? $30 million. Can Jimbo still recruit with that? He had unlimited resources at Texas A&M. And before NIL, he could recruit the best of them. But in this, with a limited budget, with only 18 million versus 30 million, is he going to still be able to recruit in the same way? That's the question that you have to ask yourself. Yeah, Jimbo could recruit. Yeah, Jimbo, if Jimbo became the CEO, Jimbo, could he still do the thing? But we're still working with $18 million, almost $13 million less than our rival down south. Who's going to be able to compete with that?
Are we being outspent by Pitt?
No, you're not wrong about that.
Exactly. Mike can't recruit or coach, and that's the problem, man. Is he can't get it done on either side of the ball.
I wouldn't say he can't coach. I mean, the man did go 19-0. Come on.
With a lot of NFL talent and a 6-year,
but it takes coaching to develop
quarterback.
It takes coaching to develop that.
I mean, he developed a productive player in Verson Fisk. Maybe. I mean, I give him a little
Gordon
bit of
credit.
Travis.
For Come on.
Did he develop Keon?
No, but he put Keon
Did
in
he develop Fisk?
Seed. Come on now. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Yes, this has been terrible. To be basically 5-13 in the last, 18 games to 2-10 and all of this. Absolutely. And let that be the evidence. But let's not say that he can't coach. The man did go 19-0. He did win an ACC championship. He did get our first 10-win season in how many years? Back-to-back season. He did do all that. He is a good coach. It's just not working right now.
He might be a good coach. He's just not good at Florida State. I can agree with that. He might be a great coach at Memphis or a G5 program, but it's just not working here. Same thing. Billy Napier was a great coach at Louisiana, won a ton of games. It ain't working at Florida. I think at some point you have to understand that not everybody who takes that step does great at that next step. I mean,
I agree.
He gets credit for 2023. He does. But again, there is more bad than good. And even in the 10-win season, that was great. And I don't mean to be a revisionist history and poke holes in everything, but you did great by beating LSU on the last second field goal or blocked PAT, right?
They were dominating before that.
You lost to the 3 ranked teams that you played, and 7 out of your 10 wins were against teams with a losing record. And
Yep.
Oklahoma was a team that had a lot of opt-outs in the bowl game, and you barely won that. And so
Yep.
that's where I'm just like, man, and just for what it's worth, talking about negotiating the buyout, Sam Pittman's agent is Jimmy Sexton. So it is possible. It is possible to negotiate a buyout. Man, I mean, if his agent would not let him negotiate a buyout, why do you let him give him back $4.5 million this year? I think there is something to that. And man, it's not that I didn't want Mike to work, but it's just not working. And I think at some point you have to pull the plug if it's not working, because like you talked about with NIL, right? Remember when we got snubbed and the Battle's End came out and said we had record donations because people were just pissed off and they were ready to build a machine.
Yeah.
How many donations are you going to get from Mike Norvell for the portal next year? It's probably slim to none, because no one believes in him. If you hire someone that actually excites the fan base, you'll probably get more in NIL donations than you would if you just bring back another lame duck coach for another year. Because again, like we talked about before, that schedule next year is probably even harder than the one you got this year. You got to go to Alabama. You got Notre Dame. You got to go to Miami. You got to go to Louisville. So let's just say they go 6-6 this year.
Yeah.
We said anything less than 7-5 and 8-4 was a fireable offense. So you're going to bring them back and let them go 6-6 against that schedule next year?
Again,
I just
yeah.
No,
again,
go
I
ahead.
I was going to say I agree. Again, we got to get to the end of the season. And again, we said 8-4 is the standard. And if we get to the end of the season and there's not 8 wins, well, then Jesse, I will stand on your shoulders with a bullhorn and a sign. We'll go hang out at Tallahassee. We'll stand at the Moore Center, wherever Dr. Alf or Michael Alford's office is at, and we'll scream together, fire Mike Norvell. But we're at 3-3. We're still on. We can still be on schedule to win 8 to go 8-4. It's going to take some miracles for sure, but and you can be disappointed with this loss today. You can take the totality of this season and say this has not been the direction we want. And the thing is, I think what makes this even worse, and we talked about this in the Pitt preview, is the fact that the Alabama win has tainted our view. If we had lost Alabama and we had won Virginia and we lost today, I think we'd be like, yeah, this is disappointing, but it's kind of where it is. It's because that Alabama win just hangs there like this. It's become like a dirty little secret now, like it's causing so much of this. And I just think that we got to get to the end of the season. Today was bad. It's terrible. I'm not making any excuses for today. It was terrible. There was coaching blunder. You should not have lost to Pitt. You shouldn't. You have better talent than Pitt, just like you had better talent than Virginia. Absolutely. I agree with you.
And Mike totally got saved on another bonehead 4th down call.
Yes, he
on
did.
a fake punt.
Gosh.
And again, like that's what I'm saying, man. You just can't excuse this, right? And even like, okay, so let me just calm my emotions and bring this home, right? Because if it were me, I'd pull the plug today. Like he would have not made it to the locker room. I'd have been like, buddy, parking lot's that way. I understand your argument for the end of the season, but I think you're going to end up in a Billy Napier situation where you do just enough to save your job against some bad teams, right? So the end of the season, let's just say hypothetically, right now, would you put money for this team to beat Clemson?
Yeah.
Would you?
Wait, no, sorry. No, I would not. No.
Would you put money on them to beat Florida?
Oh, no, for sure not.
Okay, so if they finish the season 7-5, you now have wins over East Texas A&M, Kent State, Stanford, who's 2-4 and getting a break speed off of them right now, Wake Forest, Virginia Tech, who's 2-4, and maybe you can beat NC State on the road, but I doubt it.
Yeah.
So you're talking about a 6-6 record with 5 ugly wins, or a 7-5 record with 6 not needle moving wins. And that's my problem, is like, I think you bring him back, it's going to be a Billy Napier situation where you're going to basically bring back someone who probably shouldn't have been brought back for finishing a schedule that is just going to hand you a couple of easy wins, right? Like I'm not going to gain confidence by saying, all right, well, we finished 7-5. We beat a bunch of really bad teams. Go beat Alabama on the road next year. Now, maybe you give him next year because that schedule is ridiculously tough and the buyout's super high. And you're like, look, man, just let them have one more year. Let them wear this, right? And wear the schedule and see what happens. And then we kind of, we rebound into 2027 and see maybe like the buyout's down. That schedule's kind of out of the way. I mean, you still got to start with Georgia. That ain't going to be easy.
Yeah.
Right now, let's pray that series gets canceled because I don't think we want a
Jesus,
part
you
of
would like
that.
to come back soon?
We got a coaching opening, right? So, man, I just, again, like, it's not that I don't like Mike. It's not that I didn't want to work.
Yeah.
I mean, we stood here I remember at the end of 2021 where I pulled so many old stats for Mike. Like, man, this is the outlier of what he's done. I think he's going to come back to the means. I think he's going to be good. But it's just embarrassing loss after embarrassing loss. And it's like, man, not only that, but we have gotten significantly worse against worse teams.
Yeah.
That's what I don't understand too. Like, you look at Alabama. Alabama lost to us. Everybody's probably like, how the heck did that happen?
Yep.
But they have gotten better now against better teams, and we have regressed against worse competition other than Miami. Miami's probably as good or better than Alabama. But again, man, I just think, like, I know the buyout is real, and I know it's going to be really tough to swallow that pill at the end of the year. But man, to me, the apathy among the fan base is back. And it's going to be hard to raise money for NIL. It's going to be hard. Let's just say they do go 6-6, and that class does kind of start to fall apart a little bit, right? You're only kneecapping your momentum to try and recover in 2026. I mean, because the class might fall apart. You might have guys leave. You have played too many games to go into the portal now. Like, you can go into the portal, but it's not going to do you any good. You're not getting this year of eligibility back. So, as far as talking about the season falling apart, that I don't know. Like, you just have to have some guys straight up quit on the team, because it's not like the Virginia Tech situation where guys can enter and save the year, right? Their years of availability is already over unless they've missed time. But I mean, I just look at it like this, man. Squirrel White, I know he's been injured, but he has regressed. Jerry Wilson has regressed. So many guys have looked worse since they came to Florida State. Like, again, we get back to it, and I understand a lot of this was under the old staff, but who was responsible for not firing the old staff in time? We talked about that. Like Mario, last week, we talked about Mario. He fired, this is their third defensive coordinator, their second offensive coordinator in like 4 years or whatever, because he knew guys weren't getting it done. You still got Derek Ray on the staff. You still got Tony Tokars on the staff. You didn't fire Alex Atkins. You did not completely clean house. Papuchis is still the linebacker coach, and they're terrible. They are terrible. And, like, again, I've defended these coaches for a long time, but, man, it's just there's been so many missteps that it's like I just don't trust that he can ever recover from this. And that's not to say that Mike's not a great guy. That's not to say that he doesn't love this university. That's not to say that he couldn't go out and win the rest of these games and win a national title next year. And I look like a big idiot on here talking about firing Mike Norvell. And I hope it happens. I hope someone clips this after the national title game next year and tells me how dumb I look. Yeah. I'm just not confident that he's ever going to fix this, because, again, man, people see this. Like, look at the stands today. It was a lot of empty seats in that stadium. And shout out to our guy who we sent to the game, gave my tickets. I'm sorry I sent you to a loss. I wish I hadn't done that. But, man, I do appreciate that. You taking the tickets and everything. Man, I just want to, let's just highlight real quick. We got a super chat from Encyclopedia here. I really appreciate that. I saw someone said they were going to save their super chat.
I saw that too.
That was a great comment. Hey, we'll split it and we'll send half to this program or whatever. But he says no more excuses. Get rid of Norvell, even if we go 9-3, which we won't. Who cares if we lose players? And man, I think just for me, again, it's like even if you'd have won today, I wouldn't have felt good about that win. I mean, yes, it still counts as a win in the win column, but it would have been a win that showed zero progress. And that, I think, is what's disappointing, is you just continue to get worse every week. And now that Gus is not in game one, where you can pull a reverse out of the bag the rabbit out of the hat every quarter, and people actually know what's coming, it's not working. It's just not working. I mean, this defense it's not great. And this is where I'm at, right, with this program and this team in year 6 under Mike Norvell. I think as Florida State fans, we have to accept that right now we are a middle to bottom tier ACC team. That is what we have become under Mike Norvell. Now, granted, he won the ACC 2 years ago, and I will give him credit for that. I think that was as much on Jordan and having the ability to call plays at the line and audibles and stuff like that, and having a ton of veteran players that came back and knew the system. Maybe it was not Adam Fuller, because that defense wasn't awful last year. It was just supported by a really, really bad offense. But I think you have to understand that right now we are a bottom feeder in a bad conference. And that's just a reality for Florida State. We talked about this before on other shows. Like, you have to understand, like with a Nebraska, what you have become. It's not look at what we did. It's the reality of the current situation. And that's
Yeah.
where I feel like Florida State is right now is your current situation is, man, you finished 17th in the ACC last year, and I believe you're tied for 16th this year. You're 0-3 in the ACC, 1-10 in the last 10 games. You are a bottom feeder program in the ACC, and that makes me sick to even say.
Yeah, it
And
does.
there's only one common denominator throughout this whole tenure. And I understand Willie wasn't great. We fired him after 21 games because it didn't look any better. Man, in year 6, it ain't looking any better. And so that's just kind of where I'm at, is we just have to understand that we have to place new expectations on this program until you give us reason not to.
No, for sure. And I think you have to you have to look at it, and you have to come down, as you're evaluating just the scheme, the coaches that they brought in. I mean, for instance, this defense is absolutely atrocious. Like, I know we could talk about how the secondary has regressed, but I don't think it's the actual players necessarily. I do think they're making bonehead decisions, absolutely. But I think it's the scheme. When you have corners who are playing 10 yards off on a 3rd and 3, or you have corners playing 10 yards off on a 3rd and 1.
I won't argue with that, but the scheme doesn't make Earl Little forget he has arms on defense.
No, for sure. Okay.
Jerry Wilson has regressed severely. That I don't know that that's on the scheme, because he ran a lot of zone at Houston. He was like one of the best zone defenders in the country. Yeah, and now he looks lost.
Yeah, I listen, I don't agree that the players, some of them haven't regret.
I'm not saying everyone is.
Yeah,
Jabril Rawls is a real one. Like, he's good.
He was the best player on the field today. What I'm saying is, though, that the scheme isn't helping them find themselves again. And what I don't understand is this scheme had Alabama and flummox. Okay. This scheme had Alabama running all over the place, trying to figure what the heck to do. Ty Simpson didn't know where to throw or run or take down or sit down and go use the bathroom. Like, he didn't know what to do. And yet now it seems like every defense since starting with Virginia, Miami, and now Pitt, they're having field days. They're throwing for record-breaking yards. They're running for record-breaking. I mean, touchdowns look super easy and simple. There was a play where you had Blake Nicholson on the read guy. And I mean, all he does is turn his head and Blake goes flying out of the picture 20 yards down the field. What I'm saying is, yes, the players have regressed, but the scheme isn't helping either. And that's on Tony White. Now, you could say that falls to Mike Norvell's feet. Again, yes, I totally understand that. But that's on Tony White. That's on Tony. You've got to change. Like, your scheme's not working. And you've got to figure it out. So maybe we need to go to a man-to-man 4-down 2 linebacker. Get your 2 best linebackers that can cover in space and just figure it out. Find a way to give this offense a chance. And then with the offense, Gus, why for the 5th game in a row are we running a reverse to Danzy when everybody and their grandma knew that was coming? You saw the formation. And I literally was sitting on the couch and I was sitting on that couch right there watching this big TV, and I saw the formation. I go, oh, here comes a reverse to Danzy. Let's see. And boom, Pitt was ready for it and tackled in the backfield. And so it's just, I think they're just not helping these players with the scheme. And that, now, again, that's on Mike Norvell. He's got to get to those coaches. He's got to talk to them and help them figure it out.
Yeah. And I mean, because that, you know what it sounds like you're saying, Michael, bad coaching, which is kind of a reason to get rid of the coaching. That's all. That's what I'm saying. It sounds like bad coaching. And I get it, man. Like, some of the, like, first off, James Williams is an absolute just bust. Like, you got to start tackling. One tackle. So. It was a good tackle.
It was a good tackle.
I was like, hey, he's still alive. He still exists. It's great. But man, again, when I look at this, I think it's like there are some personnel problems. I think there are some coaching problems. And I think at the same time, when let's just say Gus Malzahn's offense does not work out, you have one good game and nothing else really happens. The way you look at some of the, like, holding on to Atkins too long, you brought in an offensive coordinator and said you had the best offensive coordinator in the country. And if it doesn't work, that was your decision. And if you bring in, and I don't have a problem with Tony White. I really don't. I don't love the scheme, maybe the way it's looking. I meant like the hire, right? I think the hire looked good on paper. A lot of people question Gus Malzahn's hire because his best days were behind him.
I did.
And, I talked about this, most of the time. can't really talk about this, but at work, we had something happen at work, right? And someone was talking about, oh, well, this stinks or whatever, because I'm a paramedic and it was someone who did something they shouldn't have done. And I said, hey, decisions have consequences. And now you're dealing with those consequences. And I feel like Mike needs to be held. He needs consequences for his decisions. Like if this is the best you can do when you got your opportunity to rebuild the staff, and this is the best we're going to see. Now, again, we'll see how the rest of the season looks, but you chose Tommy Castellanos. You chose every one of those offensive linemen to bring in here. You chose, and I'm not going to say Deuce Robinson because that was a good choice. He's a good player for you. You chose Squirrel White, even though he was injured all the time. Guess what? He's injured all the time now.
Yeah.
I mean, really, you made a couple of good additions, right? Like, I think if you had Deuce and you had Micah Pettis in the game, you probably win the game. And I'll be
Pittman.
honest, like, and Pittman, if you had those three guys, I think you probably win the game. But I just come back to it's year 6, and you're having to rely on transfers again as your only good players for the most part. Your only guys who can step up and make plays. And, you should have had some high school. Like when you had texted me before, like, is this still on Mike Norvell with all these guys out? I said, well, where's Elijah Moore? Where's LaWayne McCoy? Where's all these receivers that we have signed over the years that nobody has turned into anything? We can't figure out special teams, the basics of football. We can't tackle. We have penalties. We turn the ball over all the time. Like, again, man, it's just we talked about this with Tommy, and I don't want to trash on Tommy because I think he had a pretty good first half and he played well against Alabama, but he's not been great in the last couple of games. We said this in the preseason. I was worried that Mike Norvell sees a guy have one good game against him, 2 good games against him, and all of a sudden that's the guy you got to have. Like, look at the rest of the sample set. This is in every game he didn't face Florida State. This is what we saw, just about. And now you're seeing it again. And so again, I go back to decisions have to have consequences, and you've made your decisions and look at the results. And so now they got to have consequences. But again, I understand you can give him to the rest of the year because firing him right now isn't going to change the play calling. It's not going to change. It might change some of the decision makings. Like maybe we stop going for it on 4th down in bonehead situations. But other than that, I just don't know. And I think, as far as the talent conversation and keeping guys in the class and whatnot, man, we already know Mike Norvell is going to go get 20 players from the portal next year. And I think it would be disappointing. The biggest part that would be disappointing about firing them is you would hope that you could have somebody come in that brings enough excitement to talk the Desir twins into staying, to talk Kevin Wynn into staying, to talk Chroma into staying, because those are really good young players for you. And so maybe you can see the future from those guys. But my question is, you got to bring in another class like that. You got to continue to develop that class, that 25 class that you signed, because it was good. But do you have enough time to wait for that maturation? And I just don't think you do, because again, if you go 6 and 6, 7 and 5 this year, and you're like, look, I mean, we got some good young players. The class is okay. Whatever reason you can use to justify it, because it ain't gonna be my reason, because I'm over it. Then you go in next year and you go 7 and 5. You have now put yourself another year behind. And I understand that you don't want to get into the situation that Miami and Florida were in for the last couple of years, where you're like hiring, because you don't know who's going to be the next guy. But at the end of the day, like we've always said, man, like we've started this, me and my guy on Instagram, we have started this hashtag results matter. And so the problem that I have is like, who's doing worse? That's all I'm saying. Like, who is going to come in and do? Michael, I'm pretty sure your boy could go 2-10 for a lot cheaper than $10 million. That's all I'm saying. We do have a super chat here from C Black. Appreciate that, my guy. He says, you have to make a decision on Norvell soon. Signing day is the first week of December. Is Norvell's buyout worth turning into Nebraska? Die by the portal. And man, I can't disagree with you, because I do think you have to understand that signing day is coming up soon. And if this class, because I think you also have to go back to look at 2023. When you came off 2023, you actually had a really darn good class. Then 2-10 happened and the class fell apart. So this year, if you are to have a 6-6 season, does the class fall apart? And do you wait long enough that you can't bring in someone who can pick the pieces up, try and pull that class together, and try and bring in some guys? Now I know someone says 6-6, what are you smoking? I'm just saying, like, that's I think 6-6. I don't even know how to say this, but I think 6-6 it's not my minimum. Just hear me out, guys. I'm talking about if I am the head of Florida State University and I am staring down the barrel of a $60 million buyout to make a coaching change, uncertain of what's going to happen on the other side of that. That is the logical side of me, knowing that that's coming. But I think when you think about that, yeah, I mean, I think 6-6 is probably the least you can do to save your job, right? Like if he goes 5-7 at the end of the year or misses a bowl, we said, right? We did say at the beginning of the season, we expected 8-4, 7-5 would be a major disappointment. But if you missed a bowl, you had to go, period.
Yeah.
And I think if you get less than 6-6 and miss a bowl, you just gotta go. And so that's the problem, man. And so it just depends on, like you said, how the season plays out. But even if they were to, the only way I could be remotely sold on keeping Norvell for another year is if you won out and went on the road and beat Clemson, went on the road and beat Florida, and beat NC State on the road. Because here's the other thing: we're 3-3, and guess what? We just played 6 of our 7 home games already. So now you're talking about having to go on the road, or 5 of our 7 home games already are under our belt. So now you're talking about a team that can't beat Pitt at home. You got to go win at Clemson. You got to go win at NC State. You got to go win at Florida. You're going to get a gimme probably against a Virginia Tech team who's not very good. And Wake Forest is probably not going to be an easy out. They're 3-2 and did beat that Virginia Tech team. But then you go to Stanford, and that's a tricky trip across the country. You lose that game, I just don't even know what to say, man. I don't know that there's enough that they can do for me looking at the backside of the schedule other than winning out and looking good doing it, that I could justify bringing him back for another year. I just don't think there's enough on the schedule, man. And a lot of that may not be his fault. That has to do with Clemson not being good. That has to do with Florida not being great. Those just don't necessarily move the needle for me. Now, real quick, Michael, I'll throw it back to you for some more thoughts. But McPatty joined as a new member to the channel. Man, we really appreciate that. It is, if you guys are interested in that, it is a $4.99 a month. YouTube takes a little cut. We get a little bit after that. So we really appreciate him joining. That helps us here at the channel. Again, we don't charge anything for any of our content. We just let people choose whether they want to join or not. And everything that we get goes back into the show, goes back into the tailgates. We don't charge for any of our tailgates or anything like that. Like I said, it's only $5 a month. It just helps us accelerate this program that we got going here for you guys, and everything goes back into it. So if you're willing to consider that, we would love to have you. If not, man, a like and subscribe would be great to help us just reach other Noel fans. We would love to have you guys on board with that as well. But man, again, as everybody joins in, the comments are moving a little too fast for me to keep up. So I do apologize about that. I appreciate you guys all joining us. We got great numbers going on right now. But man, Michael, I'll throw it to you for a few minutes, and then I will see if I can comb through some of these comments, and we'll go from there.
Well, here's the thing I'll say, if you move on, what we have to stop saying is $50 million, because it's not just $50 million. It's $50 million for Mike Norvell. And then you have to think with Gus and Tony. So Gus is slated to make $4.5 million after the season, over the next 2 seasons after that. Tony's slated to make $3.3 million over the next 2 seasons after this season. Then you have Harris, you have Johnson, you have Tokaraz, you have Papuchis, you have all that coaching staff. That's about $8 to $9 million on top of the $50 million. Okay. So now you're looking at about $60 million to buy out that whole staff. That's not even including all the analysts and all like that have contracts. I don't know if they're yearly or not, but you probably at some point you have to, buy them out as well too. So let's add another $1.5 million. So now you're looking at $61 to $62 million to buy out this entire coaching staff. Okay. To bring in a coach who's going to trust and want to have security, to bring in a good coach, you're looking at minimum $10 million. If you can go out and find a good coach, like for instance, if you can go, it's going to take $15 to $20 million a year to lure probably. And Dan Lanning just came out and said he's not going anywhere until they win a national title, right? You're probably, you can take, I posted on a chat board that you need to go out. You need to say something about, if you're going to do this, you got to say something to Saban. You got to make him back up. That's probably going to run you $15 million. Right. So now if you can't get any of those coaches, Kirby or any of those guys, right, then you're looking at guys like Kirk Cignetti. Well, he's like 60 plus years old. Does he still have the same appeal? Can he come down and recruit, right? Indiana has been transfer portal heavy. I've looked at it. They're transfer portal heavy. So now you bring in the same problem to Florida State that we're already complaining about here, is that we're living and dying by the transfer portal. So you need to go find a coach that's actually recruiting real life. Do you go try to get Brian Hartline from Ohio State, who is like one of the best recruiters in the country right now, right? But again, he's got it made. He's making millions of dollars a year, and he's working for the best program in the country over the last few years. Like, so my thing is, it's not just a $50 million decision. It's a $150 million decision to do this, because what you're going to have to turn over, sorry, maybe not 150, $120 million, $120 million, because you're going to have to basically turn it over and find another coach and then create the same kind of buyout and all like that stuff again. So it's not it's not simple as everyone just saying like, well, I saw somebody in chat say, well, is Mike's buyout worth becoming Nebraska? It's not that simple. It's not that easy. You just can't make that decision and say, well, you got Nebraska here or $50 million here. It's not just like that. Plus, they spent $250 million renovating the stadium. They have all this money going into all these improvements that they've made, the players only for the football only facility, all those things. We're not out of the ACC yet, so we're still playing in this conference that isn't paying as much as the other schools. The Big Ten just is about getting ready to sign a $24 billion deal where each school is going to get minimum $100+ million in a one-time payout. Like, if we were getting that deal, then sure, okay, let's make the decision to do that. We're just not there. And so again, my thing is this. I saw someone say 8-4 is mediocre. That's what you're settling for. No, we've said very clearly that 8-4 should never, ever be the standard at Florida State. We've said very clearly that every year we should be contending in the national conversation for a playoff berth and a national championship and the ACC, that a 10-win season should be the standard, the minimum standard here at Florida State. I still believe that. But what we said coming off of 2-10 was that 8-4 had to be the floor. That had to be the floor to get you another season. And we are at 3-3. They can still go 8-4. It's going to take some miracles, but they can still do that. And if they don't do that, if they're 7-5, 6-6, or worse, let me go. If they're worse than 6-6, I think the report card is clear, and you should get a butt whooping, as my mom would give me, right? But if you're in that 6-6, 7-5 range, then I just think, man, I don't know what you do, because again, this is a $120 million decision in my mind.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that much, because you usually don't have to pay the buyouts up front. It may cost you that down the road. And you also don't have to pay the coach's salary up front. Like, that's paid out over time. So you will have time to kind of finance that. Maybe you go private equity. I don't know if that's a smart route or not. Maybe the banana ball money coming up this summer can help pay for that. Maybe I'll start a GoFundMe or something like that. We'll see what we can do.
Come on, Savannah Bananas.
Bring us the money we need, right? Can you just play here all season and we'll just keep selling out the stadium, whatever we got to do. But I think when you talk about some of the other coaches, right, and I think the Cignetti thing is an interesting conversation. You talk about he has to go to the portal, and that is true. And I don't hate the portal, right? I think it should be part of your recruiting process, but I think you need to be able to recruit at a high school level. But I also look at the development, right? You look at his quarterback right now, Fernando Mendoza, is from South Florida. He's from Miami. Yeah, hear me out. He's from down in South Florida. I talked to him at ACC Media Days 2 years ago when he was still at Cal. Said he never got an offer from Miami and never got an offer from Florida State. Goes out to Cal, has a pretty okay season, transfers over, and now I heard on a national show today, he's considered one of the top 6 prospects in the country at quarterback right now. That's called development and maximizing talent. How many quarterbacks have we probably signed that, at least on paper, were better than him and have turned out to be an absolute bust? I can name you right off the top of my head. It's all of the above. That's pretty much every single one that you've signed out of high school. So again, it's not always about recruiting. It's also about development. You have to be able to develop players on top of that. Like, yeah, you got to get the talent in there, but you also have to be able to develop it. And the thing is, Mike has struggled to recruit his entire tenure here. He's also struggled to develop players at the same time. And I think if you look at Cignetti, yes, he might be going to the portal, but daggone if he ain't winning with those guys. If he's not, he's developing those guys. I think Alex Golish at USF is another name that you could talk about. I don't know that you got to pay him $10 million to leave USF. I think you could probably get away with a little bit cheaper than that. I'm not sitting here saying to bring Jimbo back. I'm not saying that. But knowing the money that Jimbo got, I don't think you got to pay him $10 million either. I think you could negotiate a deal to say, if Jimbo's out there crying on ACC game day, he wants to be here. And you could say, Jimbo, look, the situation we got ahead of us. We got to pay this buyout. We can't afford to pay you $10 million. We can give you $5 million. Can you deal with that until we get out from under this buyout? But you also have a clause that, man, if this looks like it did at the end, you're not going to get to stay. And you got to hire some good coordinators. And again, I'm not saying Jimbo's the answer, but I'm also saying even when Jimbo wasn't good, we still won 10 games and played in an Orange Bowl because we had talent, because you had guys like Dalvin Cook. You had guys like Jameis Winston. You had Timmy Jernigan. I just look at this field and I'm like, which one of the players on 2025 Florida State would have started under Jimbo? Maybe Deuce Robinson. And maybe a couple of offensive linemen. I don't know that there's any of these players that would have started in the Jimbo era because they had so much talent back then. I don't think we ever had outside of a top 10 recruiting class except one time. And Mike Norvell cannot land a top 10 class. So again, I'm not saying that Jimbo is the answer, but I do feel like Jimbo didn't, trust me, I ain't forgot about promissory notes. I get that. But the floor has not been as low. And so at a minimum, maybe he at least stocks and I know this ain't what you want to get into is that, well, we're just bringing him in to stabilize the ship. That's not what we're trying to do. But again, man, I think the USF coach, and I'm not particularly in favor of taking another chance on a G5 coach. I really don't. But man, you got to look at what's happening in South Florida right now and consider, like, if you don't get Alex Golesh, somebody else is. I ain't trying to hear the Dion conversation. I ain't trying to hear none of that stuff. I need a guy who can either coach or recruit and produce results on the field or recruit. And I'm not saying Mike can't coach. What I am saying, though, is that the results aren't happening on the field or on the recruiting trail. And so I think, you look at, I heard that it was a very interesting conversation that I heard someone talking about when they brought in DeBoer at Alabama. They had said where, like, it's going to be hard to build a monster from recruiting like Jimbo had, like Kirby had, like Saban had at all these programs that could just stockpile talent. So you want to go get a guy who's a good X's and O's coach. That also doesn't mean that DeBoer is not recruiting, especially when you have success. You can land those recruiters or those kids. So I do think you have to have someone who can still do the X's and O's, which is what would be my concern about Jimbo is, can he still do the X's and O's? He can do one side of it, but is that side of it going to work in the modern era? I do think you need a guy who can coach, but I don't think you can have a guy who is and let's be frank, I'm just going to be honest, man. If you're Mike Norvell and you are a $10 million per year CEO, you don't call plays. You at least need to be able to recruit, right? Dabo ain't calling squat in Clemson, but the man can recruit. And so that's why I think you at least need a guy, if he's going to be just taking a check to be a CEO, you at least have to be able to bring in talent. And to me, that's where I'm at with Mike is if the results aren't being produced on the field, maybe the coordinator changes happen, but you at least got to be able to bring in talent if you're going to be a $10 million CEO. That's just where I'm at. And right now, he's just not doing it.
Yeah, I hear you on that. I think you make a.
Let me make one more point and I'll throw it back to you. So here's the other problem I have. If the recruiting gets better, then who do we give credit for that? Because Mike's never been able to recruit very well at Florida State off the back of a 10-win season, off the back of a 13-win season. You would probably give credit to the assistants, right? Because Gus knows how to recruit. Gus has sat in living rooms against Kirby and Saban and all them and recruited. What happens if you keep him around? Let's just keep Mike for 3 more years, then we can eat that, maybe to buy out unless things get better. What if Gus leaves? What if Tony takes a coaching job, and takes his guys with him? Then the problem for me is, like, now you're back to square one with a CEO guy who still can't recruit, and you've lost the guys who could recruit for him. So to me, that's why the head of the operation needs to be the strongest link in the chain. And right now, it just doesn't feel that way for me.
Yeah. The thing is, I mean, you make good points. The thing is, at the end of the day, and like you said, we have better NIL than Pitt. We have better NIL than Virginia. We have better NIL. We shouldn't be losing those games. But I think when you look at the totality of this, I think the NIL, I mean, so I saw somebody on another media show talk about this, is that the NIL game has been the game changer when it comes to recruiting, like immensely. I mean, one of the reasons why Mike Norvell has lost out on his biggest recruits on signing days because these other schools have come in the last minute, swooped in with much bigger offers than Florida State could afford to. Florida State has an projected $18 million NIL budget this year. Miami has a $30 million budget. That's $13 million more. You can go get better players, better high school players, better transfer portal players, better quarterback. Back-to-back years, Miami has gotten the better quarterback out of the portal with Cam Ward last year, Casey Beck this year. Florida State's got DJU for $800,000 and Tommy Castellano for $800,000, right? So you're already working with a massive deficit. Add on the fact that then, I would agree. I don't think Mike is the great recruiter that he would like to be, or that he might think he is. But when you're not the great recruiter and you're also working with a massive deficit in NIL, I mean, these recruiting classes are what you're going to see. It doesn't matter that you might be in the most recruiting fertile base in the country in Florida. Like, these kids want money now. That's what they want. Yes, they want the relationships. Yes, they want to know they're going to get playing time, but more so, they want to know how much they're going to make. And if I've been a Florida State fan, like if this was my son, I'm just being real with you. If this is my son, I've been a Florida State fan since I can remember, and my son was eligible to go to play D1 college, and Florida State was recruiting him, and Florida State offered my son $800,000, and Miami came in and offered my son, $1.5 million. Well, I wouldn't blame my son if he went with the Miami, right?
No.
Because you just have that kind of money. That $1.5 million is going to speak over $800,000 every single day. Right?
I might disown him, but I'm gonna need a little bit of that check.
Exactly. When Miami and Florida State play, I ain't talking to him. He ain't my son. But afterwards,
I'm gonna need an agent fee.
Exactly, right? We go into Red Lobster afterwards, because he paying. Like, I'm just saying, like, we cannot forget that NIL is playing a major factor into how Florida State can and can't recruit right now. On top of the fact that Mike isn't that great a recruiter, on top of the fact that you're also trying to get kids, again, I know, empirical evidence, again, to believe, coming off a 2-10 season, that Florida State is headed the right direction. I get all that. That's all true. I'm just saying that there are more factors than just he can't recruit that's at play here.
No, I agree. I think you're right. I think NIL is a bigger factor than a lot of people want to give credit. I don't necessarily buy into a lot of the Florida State doesn't have enough resources to do better than it does at a minimum. I do think when you talk about Mario and that staff down in Miami, I think they're a lot more dogs on the trail than Mike Norvell
is.
I
agree. Yeah.
And so I do think there is a part of it that is just how serious do you take recruiting, right? How serious do you hold that staff accountable when you keep losing flips on signing day and things like that? I look at the top 25. I look at Georgia Tech. Is Brent Key spending more than Florida State? Probably not. And he's flipped that program all around. They're 13th and 5-0 in the country right now. Vanderbilt is 5-1 with a loss to Alabama and ranked number 20 in the country. I guarantee you we're probably outspending them. Memphis, I really don't know, because Memphis got that FedEx money. So I don't know that you're going to get that, but again, USF 4-1 ranked above you. And I know they're probably, they're playing an easier schedule, but they already beat Florida. We'll see if you beat Florida at the end of the season. So man, I just look at it like, yes, I understand what you're saying when you're talking about Florida State competing against the Miamis of the world and that type of stuff to get that talent. But again, I just go back to like we talked about on the last episode, the Crossroads episode, where it's like you beat Alabama, you beat LSU twice, you beat Miami 3 times, you beat Clemson before in the NIL era. So you can win with what you got. It's just the problem is you're also losing to Pitt, you're losing to Virginia, you're losing to Boston College, you lost to Jacksonville State in the NIL era. You're what, 1-2 against Wake, I think, 0-2 against NC State. You can't beat teams that you're outspending. And so to me, I also look at it, like I said, man, where yeah, I'm 100% with you on the NIL conversation. I think Florida State's NIL resources, I think really if you're Florida State, you have to step back and you go, how competitive do we want to be, right? And I understand Florida State has some challenges with, you are a young university, right? You have a smaller alumni base because you don't have a head start. You've only been playing football for 75, 76 years. You've been playing 20, 30 years less than a lot of these programs you're recruiting against. I understand that. You have the geographic side of things where, you're in the state of Florida. And so I do understand that the NIL thing and all that stuff is what it is. And if you're Florida State, you have to figure out a way to rally the troops and get people to donate. You have to be able to get that excitement within the fan base, right? Because Bobby did a lot of stuff, a lot of great with a lot less. And the problem that I look at is like, you can overachieve once in a while, right? I mean, the things that Bobby did at this program were amazing. And I don't ever expect to build another dynasty because it's just not the college football that we know. There's been a lot of conversations about, will we ever see another undefeated team national champion in college football? And right now, it's almost hard to argue with that because there's a lot of parity in the sport. But again, I just go back to like, yes, the NIL does matter, but it can't be the blanket excuse whenever you're losing to teams that you're outspending. The NIL doesn't make you decide to fake a punt on the 28-yard line coming out. Like, NIL doesn't make you make bonehead coaching decisions. And that's the thing. I understand you're still trying to recover from, the last year of Jimbo and the Willie era and the beginning of Mike Norvell. And Lord knows Mike Norvell has caught some ridiculously unlucky breaks since he's been at Florida State. I will give him credit for that. But man, we're 6 years in and it just doesn't look any better than it did in, I won't say 2020, but it just doesn't look any better than it did in 2021. And we fired Willie for that. So like, give him to the end of the year and you're going to have to figure out, because like you said, man, if you want to bring in a big time coach, you can't sell him a not so great NIL budget, right? But you have the facilities that are coming online now. You've done all the stuff. I just also look at it, man, when I have seen 2 weeks in a row in the fourth quarter, they're showing Florida State fans heading for the door before the game is even over. How much excitement is there going to be for people who fund NIL to open their wallets and be part of that? And I understand with the revenue share and all that stuff nowadays too, that it's going to come a little bit out of the school's pocket. So that buyout that you're going to have to pay is going to make it tough for you to spend a lot of money. But I saw a thing the other day where I think it was a guy talking about an AD said, if you aren't willing to spend around 10 to 15 million over the cap, that if you're an AD, you might as well start looking for a job because that's what it's going to take to compete at a high level. And maybe there's some questions that we have to ask, ourselves as a fan base and things like that on how much we donate and things like that. I get that part of it too. Do you want to be Ohio State? Do you want to be Georgia? Do you want to be Alabama? There's going to take some things. It's going to take us all to get there in this era, right? It's going to take us all to get there. But I think you got to have good coaching on top of that. You got to have guys who uses the resources. We talked about this in our last episode. We got, 9 running backs or something like that on the roster. You don't really just ride one or two of them like you could. I mean, Roydell, I don't even think played today. You got a bunch of tight ends you got 8 tight ends, I think. And without Randy Pittman, I mean, Landon Thomas looks okay at tight end, but everything else looks like, what are we doing? So maybe you could be smarter about the way you use your NIL money as well. Like, just maybe stop. We got 18 DBs and none of them look like they can cover except for about 4 or 5. Like, where's Charles Lester? Look at Jerry Wilson is in a blender out there. Where's Kai Bates? Where's all these blue chip DBs that are supposed to be being developed? We're DBU, and we got transfers that really kind of can't play right now. And these guys that have been in the program for a while just aren't getting it done. They're not even getting a chance to show what they should do. And I think that's the other problem that I have too with where the staff is at is you keep going portal, and you at some point you got to put these guys on the field and let them see what they got. That's the only way to develop them. That's the only way to get them playing time. I mean, you said the other day that not every player who comes in as a freshman is a hit and can get on the field right away. And I'm with you on that, right? But you do look at a Ryan Williams, you do look at a Malachi Tony, you do look at the I forget his name, the Blake kid, I think, for Clemson. You do look at the kid, the offensive tackle at LSU that was like a freshman All-American. Like, you have plenty of examples. A freshman quarterback just came into your stadium and dunked on your head. Like, at some point, you got to put the guys on the field, because not only are you spending NIL money to go buy expensive pieces out of the portal, and I know high school costs money too, but it's going to be hard to recruit high school players to come in and sit behind transfers for 3 years and then transfer out and go somewhere else because you're either A, not being developed, or B, you're not getting playing time. And I know we all got really pissed off when we heard Hakeem Williams talk about the development at Florida State. And I also understand that receivers coach is no longer here. So it is what it is. But, man, when you look at the evidence of how many high school players we brought in that were technically blue chip, they can't all be bust, right? I understand star rankings don't necessarily matter, but they can't all be bust. And so at some point, you got to be like, well, is there any truth to that?
I mean, there's it can. Yeah, just so you know, they can't all be busts. You can have recruited at the bottom of the barrel of the 5 stars, because the bottom 5 stars are really like 4-star pluses, and the bottom 4 stars are really like 3-star pluses. So it
And
can
most of
be
the ones that
possible.
transfer didn't do anything. So I will say that, but that speaks to your eval skills too.
That speaks to your evals. You're right on that. Here's the thing. Again, I think C Black chimed in there with a $1.99 super chat. Appreciate that, C Black. But he says FSU had a top 10 NIL budget and lost to Pitt in Virginia. Now, again, FSU had a top 25 NIL budget, but I just looked on all the NIL evaluations. FSU ain't even in the top 15 in NIL right now. According to On3, according to 247, they're at 20. Now, I just read this morning, again, FSU had a projected $18 million budget. So, yeah, their budget should be able to beat Pitt. Their budget should be able to beat a Virginia. Absolutely. Don't hear me. I don't disagree with you in that sense. But let's not forget that they're not spending. They don't have the kind of money that Ohio State's spending. They don't have the kind of money that Texas is spending, or Texas A&M, or all these big schools are spending. They also don't have the conference prestige that the SECs that have, or the Big Ten have. So you're also working against that. Now, again, Miami, I know Miami's the case. They're ACC school, but they're spending $30 million. Like we're I don't know how many times I have to say that. They're spending $30 million on their roster. And then also to your point about, Bobby doing much with less, you're absolutely right. Bobby did so much with so much less. But this is a completely different era of football. If this was the same era of football, I think that argument would stand the test of time. But it's no longer that. You can't use that argument anymore because Bobby didn't have, at least what we knew, $18 million to give the players. We might have had some free shoes, but we didn't have $18 million in that time period, right? And so you have to judge Mike Norvell by the standard of this era of college football, not by Bobby's standard, not by Jimbo's standard either, by this standard. And again, we've said the standard is a standard. And right now, he's not meeting that standard. I'll agree with that wholeheartedly. He's not meeting the standard. But we've got to get to the end of the season and see where we are. And then I think you'll have empirical evidence and data to make whatever decision you want to make there, whether or not he should be here or not. But there's so much context and complexity to this era of college football that it's not just as simple as it is simple as W's and L's. Absolutely. At the end of the day, it's W's and L's. But right now, at this part of the season, it's not as simple as just W's and L's. There are other factors that are coming into play. At the end of the season, it's W's and L's, period.
Yeah, no, I agree. I would also say, yeah, it is a much different era of college football, right? I for sure agree with you there. Bobby also didn't have the portal to be able to lay Band-Aids over your recruiting every single season.
Sure.
We talked about this before. If it wasn't for the portal, Mike would not be here.
Oh, no, definitely not.
Mike didn't. I mean, I know he got screwed out of a 14 playoff, and golly, that still hurts me to even think about. He didn't get a 12-team playoff. He didn't get NIL where you could go buy players. Again, man, like even the eval thing too. And I understand it's a different kind of offense. I understand that, but you look at like what Chandler Morris is doing right now. He's a quarterback out of North Texas. Like Virginia can go. These other teams are going and finding these guys. And like you're still bringing in guys that aren't playing well, and you're not developing, doing a whole lot of developing either. One real thing I want to highlight real quick: EJ Harold joined as a channel member. EJ, we really appreciate that. Again, like we said, man, we appreciate that, and it goes everything that you donate does go right back into the show. So I just wanted to stop and say I appreciate that. We thank you very much. But no, man, I agree. And we're over an hour, so we're going to kind of start steering this towards the finish line here. Again, I still got some ribs and some burn-ins on the smoker that I got to finish. Mike ain't the only thing getting cooked out here today, buddy. I got some barbecue on the grill, right? I mean, we ain't the only thing that got smoked today. I got to get some stuff off the grill. But no, man, I agree. I understand where you're coming from, and I think it's a logical point. And maybe I'm more heart than head right now because I just hold this program to a higher standard. I just also understand that, like, I know the monumental challenge that comes with firing Mike Norvell because of the buyout. And I still don't think it was a stupid decision to make that decision when you did, because, if Alabama truly was coming calling and you were 13-1 at the time and all that stuff, I don't think it was a bad decision. But what you've essentially done is painted yourself into a corner, and it went a different way than you thought. And so now you have to find a way to get out of that corner as fast as possible. Maybe it is at the end of the season. Maybe it's at the end of the next season. Because again, you talk about, you talk about Napier there at Florida. Like, I think a lot of the reason he came back this year, other than the fact that Lagway looked pretty decent, was because they were like, man, we're not bringing in a new coach to wear that schedule next year. And then to, come out and end up having where things don't look good in year one under the new coach, and you kind of kill all your momentum. And again, man, like we talked about, that schedule next year is going to do you no favors when you look at how tough that is. And if you have to bring in a new coach who has to kind of start over to wear that again, it's not going to be easy. And I think that is kind of the hard part of it. And so I think you have to weigh all costs, right?
Yeah.
You have to weigh what it's going to cost. You have to weigh what Mike Norvell may be willing to do or not do on the buyout. If you do have that conversation, you do have to understand what that schedule is. And I've been trying to find it in my notes forever. So you go at Bama, at Miami, at Louisville, at Pitt, at BC, home versus Clemson, home versus Notre Dame, NC State, SMU, UVA, Florida, and Central Arkansas. Right now, and I know it's going to be a different team, I'm having a hard time finding more than about 4 or 5 wins on that schedule. And so, again, how much interest in NIL and donations and ticket sales and all that stuff are you going to generate, knowing that that's coming? And I think that's the hard part that you have to also put on the scale with it, right? Is everything that you're talking about is valid. And I think how much the coaches are going to cost has to be put on the scale. I think maybe this is a dangerous game to start doing this. You heard this with Florida last year when the rumor was that they had raised the money. And so I think that's dangerous, because it does look bad that you're basically working in the background behind your coach. That's not a good look for anybody. But at the same time, I think it's probably not a bad idea to start gauging interest. Like, can we come up with some of this? Can we negotiate something? Because again, man, I just look at, if you go 6-6 this year or 7-5 this year, and you throw your hands up and you're like, we can't afford it right now. And then you come back next year and you go 6-6, 5-7 again, because you play an even harder schedule with harder games on the road and some tougher home games. Man, where is this program going to be at the end of 2026, right? I mean, you can still sell the new facilities to new coaches. You can still sell at least a top 20 NIL budget. I think if you did hire a new coach, you're going to get more excitement in people donating to the NIL. I do think all of that is true. But you're right. You do have to weigh where you're at. It's just, for me, I just don't think this is going to work. I don't think it's working anymore. I said last week I didn't think it was working, and some people jumped all over me for that. Most of the people supported me. I'd say it was 70-30. A lot of the people were like, "No, you're wrong about that," and I would be like, "Why?" And then it was crickets. And so it's like, to me, I think when you start weighing things on the scale, it is a really big tipping point you have to do to get over what it's going to cost to replace them. But at the same time, I just look at, man, if you keep kicking this can down the road, like you always say, you're going to turn into Nebraska. You're going to turn into one of them programs. And if you start accepting 8-4 and 7-5 every year, because again, you really think against this schedule, if you can't go 7-5, that next schedule, replacing your entire offensive line, and man, I hope we start Sperry next year. Please do not go to the portal again. Let's actually play a quarterback, right? Let's try and develop someone around him. Spend all your NIL money putting a good offensive line and some good receivers around that kid and roll with it. But if you just go 6-6, 7-5 this year, and you accept that, and then you go into next year and you go 6-6, 7-5 again, oh man, that's gonna be hard to recover from, man. How much farther are you putting yourself behind? And that's what worries me the most, because the other thing too, I think that we have to consider, and I want to get to this, the super chat here by C Black, but if you keep kicking the can down the road, you are also going to be recruiting players into systems you're probably not going to be running once you fire those coaches, right? We're probably going to need to go back and get a passing quarterback. You're probably going to want to go and get guys who aren't built for a 3-3-5 defense. And so now you're also kind of polluting your roster with guys that you're not going to need under the new systems. And I think that only puts you farther behind when you kick the can down the road. But let me throw it to you for some final thoughts. But let me first address a super chat here we got from C Black. Thank you again, C Black, for coming with this. Play UF on November 29th. Early signing period is December 4th through the 6th. Can't wait until the end of the season. You have to start the search soon. 2026 will be worse. And Michael, I will say this, and I'll throw it to you for some final thoughts here is you say wait till the end of the season. And I understand that. I think it's okay, right? Because again, he doesn't call plays. It ain't gonna change anything, other than better decisions on fourth down. But I do think there is a situation where maybe before you get to that Florida game, right? Like if you win one, maybe two games by the time you get to Florida, I don't know that you need to wait for that last game, right? Just because of the way the early signing period does run right after that game. I think if you have in the back of your mind that you're like, okay, this just ain't going to work, and we're going to have to make that decision at the end of the season, and you're, 4-7, and the Florida game is the only one left on the schedule, I think it would be fair to say, okay, we can make a change before then.
Yeah, I think if you're getting to that Florida game, and again, it has not met the floor standard of 8-4, and it's looking terrible, and you're at 6 and you're probably only going to win 6 games or less, then I think that's when you start having that conversation. You try to be the first on the market there to go get the best option you can get. You have to have a plan ready to go. I'm sure any good AD has a list of coaches that they've kept in their proverbial drawer that they're ready to pull out at any point in time. Listen, if Mike Alford is as smart as I think he is, he's thinking about potentially having to make a move. He's already talking to the agents of these potential coaches already. We know this is all happening behind the scenes. This happens every time for every program. You're already talking, because it's always an interesting thing how they get their coaches in pretty quickly. Obviously, the Mike Norvell search after Willie Taggart took some time because they all thought it was Bob Stoops. But you're probably already having these conversations preliminary to say, is this guy interested? Is this guy? You're putting out feelers right now. You're doing all that. But at the end of the day, we have to get to the end of the season. We have to see where this program is at. Again, they still have an opportunity to go 8-4. If they go 8-4, I think you bring them back. And I think you put, like you said in the last preview, that you put all your eggs and you say, this is it. Year 7, Mike. You got to win 10 wins. You got to get to the playoff. If he doesn't, then I think you break it off. If he doesn't get to 8-4, then I think you're in a little conundrum of what to decide. Now, if it's anything less than 6 wins, I say yes, you got to be done. If it's anything less than 6 wins, if it's 6 or 7 wins, you're in a pickle. You got to decide. But if it's 8-4, I think he gets another season. That's how I'm going to judge every single game moving forward. Are we getting to that 8 win? Now, if you lose to Stanford, Jesse, I might be right there with you if you lose to Stanford.
Buddy, I will send you the Zillow link for housing in California, because you can start looking out there. No, but I think you're right, man. I think the problem is, for me, I don't think Florida State is going to go, well, he went 7-5, not 8-4. Let's fire him. I think it. Again, this is not my perspective. This is where I think Florida State is looking again at $50, $60, $70 million to wipe the slate clean and bring somebody new in. I don't think the difference is going to be 8-4, 7-5. I think it's got to be 5-7, 6-6. It just looks bad. I'm sure in the back of his mind, Michael Alford's walking off the field like, this mother here, like, I'm ready to go. And I tell you what, they need to make me the AD, because this dude was in the comments talking trash about Florida State, and I got him up out of here. So they made me the AD. Mike will be up out of here. So I went ahead and got him up out of there. But the last thing, one of the last things that I do want to say is, I also think when you're from a university perspective, and this is something that hits home for us, this is something that I can speak on for, like, I don't own a business in Tallahassee, but I think you also have to understand that with the results that you're giving, you're also hurting the Tallahassee economy every Saturday, because I'm telling you, like, that Wake Forest game, I will be surprised if you get 50,000 in the seats, and don't lose to Stanford, or you might not have 30,000. And, again, that season that you produced last year caused us to lose our primary sponsor. By the way, that is Alumni Hall FSU. So if you're still proud to wear your FSU gear, maybe I can talk them into some Fire Mike shirts or something like that. go check out Alumni Hall, 1415 Timber Lane Road in Tallahassee. Shop online at Alumni Hall FSU and use code SPEAR. You'll get 10% off. You can save that 10% and you can either get a channel membership from us or you can donate it to the buyout or the NIL fund, whatever you want to do. But make sure you save 10% with code SPEAR. But no, man, I do think that is something that when you look at the greater good, I think you do have to weigh that type of stuff in too, because those businesses, man, are going to be hurting when people stop coming to town, because this is a football school. And if you can't pack out those game weekends, it's going to hurt those businesses too. So I think it is something that you have to weigh, because that is a really big part of the economy. And, maybe the things that we're seeing with the rodeo that's coming to Doak and the banana ball and stuff like that, the ways that they're looking at generating that additional revenue in the off season, I think that could be something that you can see, all right, how much extra can we make? And I was hoping it was going to go into the savings account, but right now I got to pay off that credit card debt, right? Maybe we can hire Dave Ramsey as like the program manager or something to help get our finances right and help pay this debt. We'll do a debt snowball on Mike or something like that. Maybe that's something you can weigh on. But I do think there are a lot of things that you have to take into account of how much it hurts the city of Tallahassee, the businesses, the economy, and those things like that. And, again, man, I don't expect Florida State to ever get back to what we saw under Bobby. It's a different era of college football, but it can't look worse in year 6 than it did in year 2. And I just feel like that's where we're at. So, yeah, man, I'm with you. I think if it were me, I would rip the Band-Aid probably right now. I would. That's just me personally. And I do not want either one of the coordinators to be your head coach. So I would go ahead and make that known. But man, I definitely think that you really have to kind of think about that. Let's see. I got to play AD for a second here, Michael, and bing, bong, you up out of here, buddy. So that's one thing I ain't going to take. I look at it like this, man. The people of this channel are the guests in our house, right? And if there's some trash in the street, I'm gonna clean it up for the guests of my house before they get here. So I'm gonna get that stuff up out of here. But I will just say, man, I think I think you're right. I think if you can turn some things around, you can give them to the end of the year. But you had better go on a 2022-esque run after your 3 losses, and you just better start, pardon my language, belt to ass for the next however many games we got going, like 3-3. The next 6 games, I got them, Mike. Trust me, the trolls are up out of here. When I see them, they're out of here. You ain't gotta go home, but you got to get the heck up out of here. So I think you got to weigh it, and I think the next, because I said 8-4 was good enough to get you another year, but it had to be a good looking 8-4. You couldn't just get like smacked every week at 8-4, right? You couldn't get blown out in those 4 losses. I think it needs to be a good looking 8-4 if you get the rest of the season. And maybe that gives you another year, because you do have some good pieces on this roster, some young players, right? And you do have a pretty decent, I think you're 13th in recruiting right now. So you do have that. But man, again, like I said, it's just, I worry about if you keep kicking the can down the road, you're going to be recruiting the wrong type of players for the next system, and you're just going to be delaying the inevitable, which I just don't like.
Yeah, I just think it's a catch-22 either way, honestly. Like, if I'm being honest, it's a catch-22. Like, if you kick the can down the road, you're right. You could be recruiting the wrong players. You still have to rely on the portal. If you don't kick the can down the road, you could be recruiting the wrong players. You could be relying on the portal again. Like, it's just a catch-22. This is what happens in the NIL era of college football. Like, if you fire a coach, you're in this conundrum, unless you're in the SEC, unless you're in the Big Ten, where you have tons of money that you can throw at high school recruiting, that you can do all that. Absolutely. I totally understand that. And again, make sure you guys hear me say, I'm not using NIL as an excuse for why Florida State lost to Pitt, or why Florida State lost to Virginia, or why Florida State has gone basically 1-10 in the ACC in the last 11 games. It's not an excuse. Outside of Miami and Clemson, it's not an excuse. NIL is not an excuse. You should not be losing to these programs. But what I'm saying is, you got to get to the end of the season. That's what we said. And Florida State is still on track. 8-4 is not the standard here. But for this season, 8-4 has to be the minimum. Okay, for this season, coming off of 2-10, Florida State 8-4 has to be the minimum. If he doesn't get 8-4, if he doesn't get 8 wins this year, or he gets 8 wins and he looks disastrous in the you only got one more loss to really hold on to 8-4. So
Yeah.
if he looks disastrous in the rest of the season, then I think you make it really clear. I understand 8-4. It's not the standard here. I keep saying that, right? It's not the standard. Okay. So you guys can miss me with 8-4. It's what it is right now.
You get one mulligan.
You get one mulligan, and this is it.
And right now, you're searching for your mulligan ball in the woods.
Exactly.
No, I agree, man. It's just, yeah, I'm with you on that. I think if you can get to the end of the season, you can make it respectable. You can make a decision then. But man, yeah, like I said, 8-4 is never where you should be at Florida State this far into your tenure. And I don't want to say we definitely understand that, guys. Like, we're not saying 8-4 is good enough. We're saying you better get 8-4 this year. And then next year, the bar has to go to 10 wins. Exactly. It has to go to 10 wins. And competition competitive for the ACC championship and the playoffs. It has to be there.
And if you don't get 8-4, then guess what? See ya.
You got to go. You got to go. If you, like you said, man, if you lose to Stanford next week, leave him in California. Pull a Lane Kiffin. Leave him on the tarmac for all I care.
Leave him on the field.
Right. Like, and that's where I'm at. And I think at some point you almost got to start looking, and I hate to do this because I don't think the kid is not playing his freaking heart out. But man, like, if let's just say you do lose to Stanford or you take another loss or two, at what point do you roll with Sperry? Like, at what point do you start playing the young guys and trying to get things done, to trying to start building for next year and saying, look, guys, I understand this rebuild did not go how we wanted it to. We got to start building for next year. And I'm sorry that that's the case. I mean, Boston College did it. They benched him when they had to. Now, Tommy played a heck of a game today, so I'm not going to put that on him. But, it's still like, I don't know, man. It's a really hard place for Florida State fans to be. This is a really hard place for this program to be. Because the apathy is back among the fan base, and that's tough, man. And Steven, my guy here.
Thank you.
Steven, I'm still going to try and go to that NC State game, brother. I hope I see you there, man. I appreciate the super chat. We might have to be there, we might have stormed the field and throw Mike in a trash can or something together, but we'll do it. But he says, Jesse, or just want to thank Jesse and Michael for being unbiased and straight up. It's refreshing. We have a standard War Knowles $20 super chat. We really, really appreciate that, man. Again, everything that y'all donate goes right back into the channel to try and do better for us, and to do better for you guys. Yeah. Michael, I will say this: my future coach is currently beating Oregon right now, 13-10 at halftime in Oregon, which is disappointing because the coach I really want is losing
the Oregon coach
right now. I really want I wanted Dan Lanning. I would take Cignetti in a heartbeat. And again, man, there's so many crazy things in football. Let me at least say that there are crazy things in football. Like right now, Georgia Tech is only up on Virginia Tech by 7 points, and they're number 13, and Virginia Tech is a train wreck. So you should be. There's some crazy things going on in football, right? This year, Ole Miss was a 30-plus point favorite over Washington State and won by 3 points. So
Arkansas and Tennessee are tied.
There is I had some money on that, so I hope they do. I hope they cover. Man, I just think when you look at it, right, I think that there are no guarantees in football. And so if you fire Mike Norvell, there is no guarantee that you're going to bring in somebody that's just going to flip this program and everything's just going to work out. There is none.
Sorry.
That comment. Dan.
I saw that comment. I was like, that's
don't we all?
Mentality. You're so funny, man.
Don't we all? Dan Lanning, yeah, and I want Holly Berry. Yeah. It would be nice. Hey, a dude can dream. Just let me dream.
Exactly.
No, man, I agree. Like, Northwestern is 1 point down on Penn State. Well, hey, I picked Northwestern to cover on that one too. Yeah. So I'm looking at my parlay is what I'm looking at right now. I'm trying to raise some money for the buyout, son. I'm trying to get this payday. So no, I agree, man. Like, and Wake Forest, I know Oregon State stinks, but Wake Forest blowing them out right now, 25-0. So I think with what you've seen from this coaching staff and whatnot, you can't take any week for granted. You really cannot, because you could lose anyone. And so I'd say that to say, like, you don't know what you're going to get next. So there is that risk. But at the same time, this is not working either. And the point is, at some point, things just get stale. We question this with Clemson and Dabo. Like, is it just getting stale?
Yep.
And right now, I think there's a staleness on this program that I don't know that you can win enough at the end of this year against teams that really you had your opportunity to impress against the teams that you've already played. Right. Now you're just kind of beating a whole lot of kind of whatevers, is that going to be enough to move the needle? And so
Yeah.
I just don't think so, man. So
Yeah.
I think we'll go ahead and call it here. I think we pretty much said everything that we can say. We're about an hour in. Steven says, y'all go sign off so I can focus on college football. Hey, I'm with you, man. I'm trying to watch some of these games. I got to go get my ribs are probably burnt by now. But that's okay. I got burn ends coming too, but it is what it is, man. Again, we appreciate everybody.
Everybody.
We
Thank you.
appreciate everybody for joining us. This might be, Michael, this might be one of the best live streams we've had since last year after we lost to Memphis when it was a bad live stream. So, look, guys, all I'm asking is if y'all show up for the bad days,
Stay
show up
with
for the
us.
good days too,
Stay
right?
with us.
Like,
Yeah.
we would love to have y'all for some good days too. Again, I really can't thank you guys enough for joining us. This has been, it's at this point, it's therapy for all of us, right? I think it's just, this is what Planting the Spear is about. We're fans. We share that raw emotion. We come in here and just, you know what I mean? And so that's what we do together. So if you're still here, before we get out of here, guys, hit that subscribe button. If you've enjoyed this, if you're rocking with us, hit that subscribe button. I'm checking. We haven't really gone up a whole lot during the stream. So if you're not subscribed, just check. You might think you're subscribed and you're not. But appreciate you guys. Rate and review on the podcast. And we do have a website, plantthespear.com. Again, Alumni Hall is the sponsor. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. Michael, I hope brighter days are ahead. And this is a crazy turnaround to go from a noon game to a 10:30 p.m. game.
Out in California, 3 hours behind.
We might be doing that post-game show on Sunday. Well, it'll be Sunday by the time it's even over, but we might be doing that then. So, guys, I hope brighter days are ahead. But in the meantime, definitely join us. Like I said, man, let's just make a clause like, Jimbo, you can have the job, but you got to pay Mike's buyout. That is your stipulation there. But guys, again, I want to thank Miss Lisa. She's a channel member as well before we get out of here. So, Michael, we're never going to give up on this university. It is, Alex says, it's like riding a roller coaster that's on fire.
That's fun.
But we're going to ride it with you. We're going to ride it with you. So, again, I appreciate you guys, and we'll catch you on the next one. Michael, I don't care if it's 12-0 or 0-12, man.
That's right, baby.
It is always
Go Noles.
Go Noles.